The medieval world was a place defined by honor, duty, and the rigid hierarchies of society, and nowhere was this more apparent than in the life of a knight. From a young age, boys destined for knighthood were trained in the arts of combat, strategy, and discipline, often beginning as pages and squires in noble households. Their education was not solely physical. They were taught the code of chivalry, a complex set of moral and ethical rules that governed their behavior on and off the battlefield. Courage, loyalty, and piety were held in the highest regard, and the weight of reputation was as crucial as skill with a sword. For a knight, life was a delicate balance between the pursuit of glory and the preservation of honor, and failure or capture could irreversibly tarnish that carefully constructed identity. The role of knights extended far beyond mere combat. They were symbols of authority and the enforcers of the feudal order, serving lords, kings, and the church with unwavering loyalty. Their presence on the battlefield could turn the tide of conflict, and their leadership often carried as much influence as their prowess with weapons. Yet, despite their elevated status, knights were not invincible. Wars in the medieval period were brutal and unpredictable, and even the most skilled warriors could find themselves overwhelmed, surrounded, or betrayed. The reality of warfare meant that capture was always a looming threat, a possibility that could turn the pinnacle of prestige into a nightmarish test of endurance and survival. Medieval battles were chaotic affairs, marked by dust, steel, and the cries of both the victorious and the fallen. Knights charged into combat wearing heavy armor that could weigh over 50 pounds, wielding swords, lances, and shields in a coordinated effort to break enemy lines. Yet, the glamour of the battlefield often masked the dangers that lurked beneath. The sudden loss of a horse, a misjudged maneuver, or a moment of hesitation could result in a knight being struck down or captured. The honor associated with fighting bravely was inseparable from the risk of defeat, and while victory brought fame, capture carried both shame and uncertainty. Historical accounts reveal that the psychological toll of knowing one could be taken prisoner at any moment was profound, instilling a constant tension that hovered over every clash of swords and clash of ideals. The societal perception of captured knights added another layer of complexity. Captivity was not merely a matter of physical restraint, it was a public mark of vulnerability. A knight's reputation, which had been painstakingly cultivated through years of training and battlefield valor, could be jeopardized by a single defeat. Yet, medieval society also recognized the unique position of captured knights. Codes and customs often dictated that they should be treated with respect, sometimes even afforded comforts not granted to common soldiers. Wealthy families and influential allies could negotiate ransom payments, transforming imprisonment into a high-stakes game of negotiation and political maneuvering. The very act of being captured, therefore, became a delicate dance between humiliation and potential redemption, a scenario fraught with both peril and opportunity. Amidst these realities, the lives of knights were deeply human. Behind the armor and the imposing battlefield presence were men who feared pain, longed for home, and grappled with the moral consequences of killing in the name of duty. The emotional stakes were immense. A knight could achieve legendary status through victory, yet fall into disgrace or despair in the face of capture. Their stories reveal the tension between societal expectation and personal survival, between the pursuit of glory and the inescapable vulnerability of being human. This delicate balance of honor, courage, and mortality sets the stage for the harrowing experiences that follow when knights are captured, inviting the audience to explore not just the battles they fought, but the profound personal challenges they faced in the shadow of defeat. The chaos of medieval warfare was both mesmerizing and terrifying, and for knights, the line between victory and capture was perilously thin. Battles were fought on fields muddied by rain or blood, where the clash of steel and the thunder of hooves created an overwhelming sensory assault. Knights, often leading charges or defending critical positions, were highly visible targets. Their armor and banners marked them as men of importance, and while these symbols inspired allies, they also drew the attention of enemies seeking to strike down or capture them. The moment of capture could arrive suddenly. An errant spear, a horse unseated, or being surrounded by superior numbers could turn a knight from a figure of power into a helpless prisoner. Historical accounts describe such moments in vivid detail, emphasizing the unpredictability of warfare and the fragility of even the most formidable warriors. Capture was not simply a physical event, It was a turning point with profound social and personal consequences. Being taken prisoner meant an abrupt end to the immediate pursuit of glory, and it exposed the knight to humiliation, uncertainty, and the whims of the captors. In many cases, the treatment of a captured knight depended on the context of the conflict, the status of the individual, and the resources of the captor. Some were held in harsh dungeons under squalid conditions, while others were kept in relative comfort to ensure their survival until a ransom could be arranged. The historical intricacies of these practices reveal a society that simultaneously revered martial skill and recognized the practical value of prisoners, turning capture into a complex intersection of warfare, economics, and honor. The stakes were heightened by the political and military ramifications of each capture. Losing a prominent knight could weaken a lord's army, shift alliances, or embolden opponents, making every engagement a high-stakes gamble. Knights themselves were acutely aware of the consequences, and many fought with a mixture of bravery and calculated caution, knowing that one misstep could lead to imprisonment. The tension of these moments is heightened through personal accounts, letters, and chronicles, which describe knights' fear, desperation, and attempts to maintain composure in the face of overwhelming odds. Their humanity shines through, illustrating that the legendary figures of medieval warfare were also men confronting mortality, vulnerability, and the possibility of dishonor. Ransom negotiations added another layer of intrigue to the experience of capture. Medieval warfare had long accepted the practice of redeeming captured knights for payment, creating a system where wealth, family influence, and political connections could directly affect one's fate. Accounts detail how captors would assess a knight's value, weigh the potential for alliances, and sometimes manipulate circumstances to extract the maximum advantage. For the knight, this created an uncertain psychological landscape, oscillating between hope and fear as their fate hung in the balance. The emotional stakes were further intensified by the knowledge that failure to pay ransom could result in indefinite imprisonment, forced labor, or even execution in rare but brutal cases. Yet, capture could also be a catalyst for resilience and ingenuity. Some knights attempted daring escapes, relying on cunning, assistance from allies, or the misjudgments of their captors. These episodes are rich in suspense and provide dramatic tension that has captivated historians and storytellers for centuries. Each moment in captivity became a test of endurance, strategy, and personal fortitude. By examining these experiences in detail, the audience is drawn into the harsh realities of war, the delicate interplay between honor and survival, and the unpredictable circumstances that could elevate a fallen knight back into the realm of legend, or consign him to obscurity. The transition from battlefield hero to prisoner underscores the vulnerability inherent in medieval combat, setting the stage for the challenges and intrigues that define the life of a captured knight. Life in captivity for a knight was a world far removed from the glory and honor of the battlefield. Once the chaos of combat had ended, the captured warrior faced a different kind of struggle, one defined by confinement, uncertainty, and the constant weighing of hope against despair. Medieval prisons ranged from crude dungeons to fortified castles, and conditions varied dramatically depending on the status of the prisoner and the resources of the captor. Some knights were confined in dark, damp cells, enduring hunger, disease, and the mental strain of isolation. Others, especially those of higher rank, might be kept in relative comfort, yet even in these circumstances, the uncertainty of their fate loomed over them like a persistent shadow. The daily reality of captivity tested both the body and the spirit, forcing knights to confront vulnerabilities that the battlefield had often masked. Beyond the physical hardships, captivity imposed intense psychological pressure. Knights were acutely aware that their reputation, carefully built through years of service, training, and battlefield success, could be irreparably damaged by the stigma of being captured. Honor was the cornerstone of their identity, and the loss of freedom challenged everything they had worked to achieve. Historical accounts often describe prisoners experiencing anxiety, frustration, and despair as they navigated not only the practical realities of confinement but also the moral and social implications of their situation. Maintaining dignity under such circumstances was an ongoing struggle, one that required resilience, patience, and ingenuity. Some knights engaged in quiet defiance, keeping themselves occupied through training, correspondence, or negotiation, striving to preserve a sense of agency in a situation where control had been stripped from them. Ransom played a central role in the experience of captivity, shaping both the social and political dimensions of a knight's imprisonment. Captors frequently treated high-value prisoners as assets, seeking payment in exchange for release. Families, allies, and lords might mobilize significant resources to secure the freedom of a captured knight, leading to tense negotiations that could take months or even years. The process was fraught with uncertainty. Delayed payments, political shifts, or rival claims could all affect the outcome. For the knight, the weight was agonizing, with freedom contingent upon factors entirely outside personal control. Emotional tension ran high, as hope for liberation was tempered by the constant risk of betrayal, worsening conditions, or the collapse of negotiations. Captivity also revealed the cunning and resilience of knights. Many attempted daring escapes, relying on strategy, stealth, or the occasional assistance of sympathetic guards or allies. These attempts carried extreme risk, as failure could result in harsher imprisonment or even death. The stories of these escapes, both successful and failed, illuminate the indomitable spirit of knights and their refusal to surrender to despair. At the same time, these episodes underscore the fragility of their situation and the unpredictable nature of medieval warfare and diplomacy. Through these experiences, the audience gains a deeper understanding of the human cost of war. The life of a captured knight was a complex interplay of endurance, strategy, and emotional fortitude. By exploring the personal struggles, the intricate negotiations for ransom, and the relentless uncertainty of confinement, this section highlights the profound challenges faced by these warriors, contrasting sharply with the glorified image of knights in armor and on the battlefield. It is in this tension between strength and vulnerability, honor and survival, that the true story of captured knights begins to unfold, setting the stage for the dramatic events of ransom, betrayal, and eventual freedom. The stakes of captivity often reached their peak during ransom negotiations, escape attempts, and the intricate webs of political intrigue surrounding a captured knight. Once a warrior was taken prisoner, his fate was not only in the hands of his captors but also tied to the ambitions, wealth, and influence of both families and rulers. Knights of high status could command immense sums for their release, making them pawns in a larger game of power and diplomacy. Every decision, every delay, and every miscalculation could determine whether a knight returned to freedom or languished indefinitely, emphasizing the precarious balance between hope and despair. Historical records detail instances where captors manipulated their prisoners with psychological tactics, flaunting comfort or hardship to extract higher ransom or enforce compliance, creating tension and suspense that rivaled the battlefield itself. The emotional turmoil experienced by captured knights was intense. They were acutely aware that every move could affect their reputation and the perception of their courage. Some knights clung desperately to the hope of release, devising elaborate escape plans that required cunning, patience, and audacity. Others faced betrayal from unexpected quarters, whether through failed negotiations, rival claimants to ransom payments, or even treachery within their own ranks. Each setback deepened the emotional strain, making moments of success, however fleeting, feel intensely triumphant. These personal stories of perseverance, cunning, and resilience bring human drama to the forefront, allowing audiences to connect with the fear, frustration, and determination experienced by these historical figures. Escape attempts were among the most dramatic moments of captivity. Knights would seize even the smallest opportunities, relying on knowledge of castle layouts, guards' routines, or the occasional loyalty of allies. Some planned months in advance, gathering intelligence and resources, while others relied on spur-of-the-moment boldness. Success was rare, and failure often resulted in punishment, harsher confinement, or a renewed psychological toll. These stories underscore not only the danger but also the ingenuity and bravery required to survive imprisonment, highlighting the constant tension between survival instincts and the code of honor that knights were sworn to uphold. Ransom itself was a complex and often politically charged affair. The negotiation process could involve multiple parties, with money, land, or political concessions exchanged to secure a knight's freedom. These negotiations sometimes altered the course of wars, as armies awaited the return of their leaders, or as influential captives became bargaining chips in larger diplomatic strategies. The interplay of power, wealth, and honor created a high-stakes environment where every decision had potential consequences for both the individual knight and the broader political landscape. Through these intertwined experiences of negotiation, escape, and betrayal, the story of captured knights reveals the intense pressures and emotional stakes beyond the battlefield. The contrast between hope and despair, triumph and setback, or loyalty and treachery keeps tension high while showcasing the resourcefulness and courage required to endure captivity. It becomes clear that the life of a captured knight was not merely one of waiting but a dynamic struggle for survival, agency, and honor, setting the stage for the eventual outcomes: freedom, continued imprisonment, or permanent change in status that would define their legacy and impact the world around them. The end of captivity for knights did not always mark a simple return to normalcy. The aftermath often brought a complex mix of relief, trauma, and unexpected consequences. Some knights were released through successful ransom payments, while others regained freedom through escape or political negotiation, yet the experience of imprisonment left lasting physical and emotional scars. Chroniclers of the time describe warriors returning to their homes or armies, weakened by malnutrition, illness, or the psychological strain of confinement. Even those who emerged relatively unharmed faced a changed social landscape, as perceptions of honor and courage could be challenged by the mere fact of their capture. The delicate balance between shame and redemption shaped not only individual reputations but also the dynamics within their families, military units, and broader society. The social and political repercussions of captivity were profound. A captured knight was often a valuable asset whose release could alter the balance of power. Lords and rulers might leverage the return of a knight for military or diplomatic advantage, creating pressure and expectations that extended far beyond the personal experience of imprisonment. Knights who returned successfully could resume leadership roles, lead armies into battle, and reclaim prestige, sometimes even emerging with enhanced status due to their survival and resilience. Conversely, those whose captivity was prolonged or whose circumstances were compromised might struggle to reintegrate, facing skepticism, envy, or diminished authority among peers. The consequences of capture extended to families as well, with ransom payments or negotiations sometimes draining resources and creating tension within noble households. Emotionally, the aftermath was a turbulent period. Freedom did not erase fear, nor did it erase the vivid memories of confinement, betrayal, or failed escape attempts. Some knights carried guilt for comrades who had fallen in battle or remained imprisoned, while others struggled with the frustration of having been powerless in situations where their skills and honor had previously defined them. The process of reintegration required courage of a different kind, a mental resilience to rebuild identity, reputation, and confidence in the face of changed circumstances. Historical accounts often highlight moments of triumph, where knights overcame these challenges to reclaim their place in society, alongside stories of ongoing struggle, illustrating the wide spectrum of outcomes that followed captivity. At the same time, captivity could become a catalyst for growth or strategic insight. Knights who survived imprisonment gained first-hand understanding of political maneuvering, human psychology, and the vulnerabilities inherent in warfare. These lessons, though forged under duress, sometimes enhanced their effectiveness on the battlefield and in court, transforming adversity into experience. By examining the aftermath of capture, it becomes clear that the true impact of imprisonment extended beyond immediate physical or emotional hardship. The consequences reverberated across military campaigns, social networks, and personal legacies, leaving a lasting imprint on the historical record and demonstrating that the story of a knight did not end with freedom. It evolved into a new chapter defined by resilience, adaptation, and the enduring tension between glory and vulnerability. The legacy of captured knights extends far beyond their immediate experiences, influencing both the culture of warfare and the collective imagination of medieval society. Their stories offer insight into the fragile balance between valor and vulnerability, demonstrating that even the most skilled and honored warriors were subject to forces beyond their control. Historical analysis reveals that captivity shaped the evolution of military strategy, diplomacy, and social norms, as the treatment of prisoners became increasingly codified and influenced by the practical considerations of ransom, alliances, and honor. Knights' experiences in confinement informed both tactical decisions on the battlefield and the political calculations of rulers, highlighting the intersection of individual courage with broader historical forces. For the knights themselves, survival often required a combination of ingenuity, patience, and resilience. Those who returned from captivity carried lessons that could alter the course of their careers and affect the fortunes of their lords and allies. Some emerged with enhanced reputations, celebrated for their endurance and strategic thinking, while others struggled to regain lost prestige or reconcile their experiences with societal expectations of honor. The psychological and emotional impact of captivity lingered, shaping not only personal identity but also the perception of knighthood as an institution. By examining these experiences, historians and audiences alike gain a deeper appreciation for the human dimension of medieval warfare, an understanding that extends beyond swords and battles to the complexities of courage, reputation, and survival. The broader cultural impact of these stories is equally significant. Captured knights became central figures in chronicles, romances, and tales of heroism and adversity, their experiences illustrating the precarious nature of status and the consequences of both bravery and misfortune. The tension between triumph and suffering, freedom and confinement, victory and defeat resonated with contemporary audiences and continues to captivate modern viewers. Their narratives serve as reminders that the image of the knight, glorious, invincible, and untouchable, is incomplete without acknowledging the trials of captivity that shaped their lives and legacies. Ultimately, the story of captured knights underscores the enduring lessons of history. It illustrates how honor, courage, and resilience interact with unpredictable circumstances, how human ingenuity can navigate the harshest constraints, and how personal experiences reverberate through society and time. By reflecting on these events, viewers are left with a richer understanding of medieval warfare and a nuanced appreciation of the personal stakes faced by those who lived and fought under the shadow of capture. The tales of these knights close not merely as historical accounts but as timeless narratives of endurance, strategy, and the human spirit, leaving an indelible mark on both history and imagination.